Hi, Brian White filling in for Buck. Welcome to Discovering. Well, the peak of the fall colors is right around the corner, and some of the best places to enjoy those colors are found right here in the Upper Peninsula. Tonight we'll take a look at one of the top spots in the UP.
Peak of the color generally comes usually about the end of September or the very beginning of October. And that really varies a little bit from year to year. It really depends on the weather.
We'll also find out what one sportsman's club is doing to teach kids about the safe and ethical use of firearms. And we'll hear from the DNR about changes to the upcoming wolf hunting season, and we'll get this year's fish stocking report. That's all tonight, right here on Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone, forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields, call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
The Porcupine Mountains cover 60,000 acres, 92 square miles of undeveloped UP wilderness, and make for Michigan's largest state park. Within the park you'll find numerous waterfalls, campgrounds, trails of all sorts, just enough road to get you where you need to go, and a block of old-growth forest comprising almost 35,000 acres, considered by some to be the biggest and best stand of virgin northern hardwoods and hemlock in North America. Now that makes for some color.
The name Porcupine Mountains is steeped in history. It comes from the Native American people of the area. When they were traveling along the shores of Lake Superior, going from, say, the Keweenaw Peninsula over to the Apostle Island area, they had a term for one of the hills here in the park, which we call Cuyahoga Peak. If viewed from the water, that hill resembles the back of a crouched porcupine. So this became known as the place where the porcupine is, or the Porcupine Mountain, or the place of the crouched porcupine. So that's kind of where our name, the Porcupine Mountains, have come from. And now, the park is called the Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park because we, back in the early 1970s, we got a pretty unusual designation. We're actually the only state designated wilderness area in Michigan. We've got about 35,000 acres of dedicated state wilderness area here in the park as just an added layer of protection for especially the old growth forest in the park. Fall is a popular time here in the park, and right now we're really hitting some beautiful color in the park. As I said earlier, we're running the chairlifts here at our ski hill, so folks are riding the chairlift up. They're seeing the fall color. You got Lake Superior off in the distance that you can see from the chairlift, and then riding back down. Fall's a popular time here. People really like to come see the color that this area has. We got what's nice about the forest cover here is we got a nice diversity of tree species, which gives a lot of different colors in the forest as the leaves are changing. Plus, they're mixed with conifer trees, so we don't have where the hills all just look one solid orange color during the peak of the color. Instead, you got oranges and yellows and reds and greens all mixed in. And boy, some of the views, like up at Lake of the Clouds and at Summit Peak, those areas when you're overlooking the large expanses of the park, the views up there are just fantastic for fall color. Peak of the color generally comes usually about the end of September or the very beginning of October, and that really varies a little bit from year to year. It really depends on the weather. The color does tend to peak about 2 weeks earlier on the interior of the park, the high ground interior areas where it gets cold sooner. So areas like Summit Peak, the color will peak a good 2 weeks before it'll peak near the shore of Lake Superior or even down in the valley at Lake of the Clouds.
Just because it's fall doesn't mean you have to put the camper away. You might want to consider spending a couple days in the Porkies.
Yeah, camping in the park, we've got primarily 2 campgrounds. We've got our modern campground at Union Bay, and that's about a 100-site modern campground, so there's electricity there, there's a modern toilet building there. And then our other primary campground is our rustic campground that's over at the Presque Isle unit, and that's about a 50-site campground, and that one's rustic, so there's pump for water, and then there's vault toilets. There's no electricity over there. And we've got a few smaller, what we call our outpost campgrounds. They're also rustic campgrounds, but they're small in size. They range anywhere from 3 to 8 campsites. So plus there's ample opportunity. There's over 65 backcountry camping sites in the park if you want to backpack in, or if you're bringing your motorhome and your travel trailer. There's opportunities here for a lot of different types of camping. Yeah, probably 95% of our visitors at the park come to see Lake of the Clouds. That's the spot that everybody thinks about, when they hear the word the Porkies, and it really is. It really is one of Michigan's premier tourist destinations. The view up there is just spectacular. You're on this big basalt rocky outcrop. You're looking 300 feet down below you into a river valley. Lake of the Clouds is nestled down in the bottom, and then on the opposite side of the valley, the forest is all covered with old growth forest, and really just about as far as you can see is all within the park. It's kind of neat. I always like to tell people, just keep one thing in mind when you're standing up there at the Lake of the Clouds observation area. You're standing on this big rocky precipice, 300-foot drop. You feel like you're the highest spot in the park. You're actually at the midway point. You're at about the halfway point in elevation change. The lowest elevation in the park is down near Lake Superior, which is about 600 feet above sea level. The highest elevation in the park is actually up at Summit Peak, 1,958 feet above sea level. And the elevation there at the observation area at Lake of the Clouds is around 1,300 feet above sea level. So really you're only about the halfway point in the park between elevation change. So if you were hiking from Lake Superior up to the high grounds of the park, that'd be about the halfway spot in elevation change.
A trip to the Porkies at any time of the year would not be complete without a look at some of the waterfalls. As we know, the Department of Natural Resources delayed the original date of August 3rd that was set for purchasing wolf hunting licenses. I talked with DNR Supervisor Terry Minzy to get the details.
Well, we are still going to have the wolf hunting season. The dates are the same. It's still going to be November 15th through December 31st. The license sales were delayed. The reason for the delay was that we wanted to make sure we had all of our ducks in a line, try to make sure this thing comes off as smoothly as possible. There are 1,350 retail license sales venues out there, plus people can get this stuff online. So we may still have a few glitches, but we're trying to make sure that it's as cleaned up as possible and things go as smoothly as possible. One of the changes is that we will not be allowing trapping during this season. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that we are as on the spot as we possibly can be with our quota. Trappers typically have several traps out at a time, and it's potential to catch more animals than what we really want caught. So we're trying to stick to our 43 animals. The season will occur, and the license sales will occur on September 28th instead of the previously scheduled August 3rd. To get the licenses, you can come into any license sales outlet, whether it be at the DNR office or at your local grocery store that sells licenses. The sales will begin at noon on the 28th. You can also go online and purchase the licenses. But remember, there's only 1,200 licenses and over 1,300 retail outlets. So there is a chance that someone could be the first in line and have things already bought up. It's going to be a fairly competitive system. And that again is why we delayed the rollout on this, is so that we could make sure that we did everything possible to make this thing go smoothly.
The state of Michigan operates 6 fish hatcheries. 2 are located here in the Upper Peninsula, 1 in Marquette and 1 in Thompson. Fish from the hatcheries are used to stock both Great Lakes and inland fisheries. I met with fisheries manager Jan Van Amberg to get the 2013 stocking report.
This year's stocking statewide, we just completed the stocking program for the spring in early June. We stocked about 20 million fish statewide. Most of those are walleye fry. But about 9 or 10 million of those are trout and salmon that were stocked all over the state. We did it in about a 6 or 8 week period in April and May. 400 trips and 700 sites. We drove 30 or 40,000 miles with 18 trucks out of the 6 facilities. The stocking program in the UP from Thompson and Marquette hatcheries is a mixture of Great Lakes and inland stocking. Marquette stocks lake trout all over the state, both inland and Great Lakes. We go as far as Harbor Beach down in the Thumb with lake trout. Marquette also stocked about 250,000 splake. Most of those go into the Great Lakes, quite a few into Lake Superior. Munising, Copper Harbor, and Marquette all get stocked with splake every year. We also stock about 100,000 brook trout out of Marquette every year, about half in the spring and half in the fall. Those brook trout go primarily in the UP. As a matter of fact, maybe entirely in the UP. The other 6 facilities also stock in the UP. Odin Hatchery stocks all the rainbow trout that are stocked in inland waters, and they go as far west as the very west end of the UP. And if you wanted to get a listing of all the current stocking locations, you can go to the Michigan DNR website. It's www.michigandnr.com/fishstock. It's an interactive database. You can query by county, by water body, by species, by date. And the stocking program for the trout and salmon doesn't change that much year to year. So if you look at that database, it'll have the stockings from this past spring and previous years, and that's pretty much what you'd expect every year. The walleye stocking does change year to year. It's based on the walleye production is more variable, and we normally stock inland lakes or Great Lakes every other year, so that changes quite a bit annually based on how the walleye production is going in ponds and so forth. But that information is all available on the website. It's a pretty easy database to look at if you're interested in a particular lake or a particular species.
Hunting is an American tradition that dates back to as long as we've been a country, and handling a firearm is something that most of us here in the UP have done since we were kids. It's our responsibility as parents and adults to teach our children about the safe and ethical use of firearms, but we don't necessarily have to go it alone. There are dedicated sportsmen across the UP in the form of sportsmen's clubs and other organizations that feature programs designed to help. One such club is the Great Lakes Sports and Recreation Club in Escanaba.
And the reason we started this program with the Great Lakes Sports Club is to bring younger people into the outdoors and getting used to the guns and the bows and arrows. We call it outdoor deficit syndrome, just to get them away from maybe some of the little games that they play with their fingers with the internet and stuff like that, and get them in the outside. They can enjoy the outdoors out here. If you've ever been on the Sporting Clays range, it's just a walk in the woods, just like going for hunting. But the club made a conscious effort to spend the money on the resources, and we didn't have enough to start it out by ourselves, so we brought people like Wildlife Unlimited. We brought the ducks are in on it, the turkeys are in on it, Whitetails helped us, Sackerson Foundation, Marbles Outdoors. It took quite a group of people to put all the money together to do this. From the guns, we had to buy good guns, the good bows and arrows. There are some kids that are sensitive to the noise, so the archery game is their game. Some kids are just too small to start the shotguns. That's why we brought the 22s into the game. They can go over there and shoot off the bench rest. We do teach them a little bit of the skeet because they get to swing back and forth. We teach them a little bit of the trap. We had the instructor, Jim Moore, come in from Sault Ste. Marie, and he's an NRA instructor, to teach our instructors to be NRA instructors. We went through the shotgun course. I think there were 17 of us that went through that course. And it brings out that we're not just mentors, but we're brought in by the NRA as mentors. And the same thing, the archery targets, our instructors are done by the 4-H. There's an instructional part of the mentoring here that is professional. But we actually have people that'll come back during the regular shooting days at the range here, and it'll be a father-son or a daughter and father, or mother and son, whatever the arrangement is. Even grandpas bring the kids out here, but it gets them used to taking those kids and getting them ready for the hunting season. Then I would probably start stressing the safety issue as far as the over and unders, maybe not even loading their gun until they're ready for their shot, but it just gets people used to that, being a little more comfortable of the fact of handling guns, because we've got to move from station to station on Sporting Clays, and the kids with the automatics are instructed to hold them in the high port with the gun elevated, and your over and unders have to be open. And the reason we do that is so that everybody on the range can see that gun is empty. Same thing with the semi-automatics, always open. The pump action guns, always open. So everybody knows it's a safe gun. And when we get that stress to the parents, they feel a little more comfortable. They can see this kid is getting to the point where he can handle a gun. And they're ready to take him out into the wild and maybe take him for a walk, partridge hunting, or take him to the duck blind, or take him goose hunting or rabbit hunting. My game is the Sporting Clays. A little bit replicates the different hunting situations you might find. Some people say, well, I've never seen a target like that. Okay. If you look at our Sporting Clays targets, we've got presentations that come in over the top, and it's just like being in a duck marsh. The little ducks come right over the top of you. We've got a target where it comes down the creek line, and it's like shooting wood ducks. We've got targets that are like flushing pheasants. They go away from you and then they're real fast. And we've got different size targets in Sporting Clays. We shoot from mini targets to midi targets, to standard targets, to bat twos. We've got rabbit targets that'll bounce on the ground. They can also be shot as a chandelle thrown through the air on a big loop. It just gets these young shooters used to swinging back and forth. Because this game is the target setter against the shooter. So once we figure out that people have got the target sort of figured out, we'll change it. You know, just to put a little bit more into the game on them. Trap is a little more regimented. It's not the same target every time, but it's one machine, and the target goes basically straight away from you. Sometimes they'll put the target on oscillation when these kids get a little more used to the game. Then the target will be going straight away, but it might go straight away to the right. It might go straight away to the left. They also have a different game in trap where they call it wobble. The machine won't go just straight up or straight out and right or left. It'll go up and down or right and left at the same time. So just there again, it gets them used to that, figuring out where it might be, so they have to have a point of aim to begin with. On the 22 range, we start out with the targets relatively close. In fact, we were shooting spinners at first, and it got to be a little old hat for some of our shooters, so we started going to dum-dum suckers. so that it was just a small target. But then we were noticing that was getting a little old hat, so we were actually putting the steel targets out at 100 yards, and in a matter of no time these kids are knocking down the targets with a 22 at 100 yards. So it just shows you how fast they can pick up the game. We stress that as human beings, we're natural predators, and there's a natural point of aim, and we try to stress that all the time. You're just using your instincts in this game with the depth perception and such. But every so often we will run across a child that's got an eye problem as far as dominant eye, and we'll work with that, and pretty soon it doesn't take very long. They're knocking their targets down. One of the things we've noticed that there are parents that have never hunted, and now they get to see that this isn't such a big deal, that maybe they would take up hunting. In fact, we've had parents ask, can we come back for mentoring? You know, absolutely, you can come out here. The club that's what it's for, is to share. You know, not just to shoot, but to share our knowledge of the other shooters being with you. And you establish friendships where maybe you've never hunted pheasants over a bird dog. We've got several guys here that have the bird dogs, and we'll go out to Portage Marsh and we'll hunt pheasants. You know, and same thing, they've never hunted ducks. They've never seen that action. It's there again, if you get a mentor and you've never had a hunter go with you before, having a hunter that's mentored these young people, mentoring the adults is just as easy. Find a local gun club. Establish that relationship with people that have hunted. It's a wide open sport. I mean, if you think that we're a closed group of people, we're really not. We enjoy sharing what we have here, especially this walk in the woods. Plus that, we've got our guns. You can try our guns out and see if one fits you, or we'll sort of push you in the right direction towards a gun. I know when I started sporting clays, I think I went through 3 different guns before I found one that I really liked. But, you know, just to walk into the store and buy a gun, I probably wouldn't do that. I would probably come to a local gun club first. Come on out, you know, and just see what we have out here.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Take some time to get out in the woods and enjoy the fall. We'll see you next week right here on Discovery.